everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, 10 Essential Tips for Career Success. Today's webinar is brought to you by WES Global Talent Bridge. The webinar is hosted by myself, Shauna Marie Kerr, as well as my colleague, Sinai Gebremedin.
Good afternoon and welcome, and thank you, Shauna Marie, for the introduction. Thanks to technology, we were able to connect with you all and present this webinar together with Shauna Marie, even though she's in Toronto at WES's Canadian office, and I'm in New York at WES's headquarters. How's the weather for you today, Shauna Marie?
You know, it isn't too bad. Good to be chatting with you today, Sinai.
While Shauna Marie and I are speaking with you, our fantastic Marketing and Communications Associate, Anthony Castro, will be coordinating the webinar and assisting with all technical issues. Thank you, Anthony.
As some of you might know, Global Talent Bridge is an initiative of World Education Services that is dedicated to helping skilled immigrants fully utilize their talents and education in the United States and Canada. WES Global Talent Bridge offers webinars, Pathway to Success seminars, e-newsletters, networking events, and program referrals. We will follow up to let you know how you can hear more about these events.
This webinar will be recorded for your future viewing pleasure. You do not need to take notes or feel like you've missed something. We will share the recording and slides on our follow-up email. Anytime you have a question, feel free to type them in the chat box on the right-hand side of your screen. After the webinar, we would love to hear your feedback through our brief online survey. We use your feedback to help guide what information and materials we present in our future webinars. So if there's anything you'd like to learn more about or information that you'd like to hear more about, please let us know and complete the short survey following the webinar. Thank you.
2016 was a busy year for Global Talent Bridge. We produced 11 webinars and 7 newsletters, working with over 20 different partners. We hosted almost 30 in-person events and info sessions, and we have a lot more planned for 2017.
Absolutely. Taking stock of everything we did this past year, as we begin this new year, we thought it would be a great idea to revisit some of the key messages we heard from experts on how to achieve career success in Canada and the United States. We partnered with employers, academics, human resource professionals, and industry experts to bring you the most relevant and up-to-date information. As we review, we would like to once again thank our partners who shared their expertise.
Today, we are excited to share the top 10 tips we learned in 2016 and to see how we can apply them in the year ahead.
That's very exciting. Before we get started, we want to know how many of our audience members have attended our webinars in 2016. We'll open the polls to get a better sense of who is here. Well, thank you all who participated in the poll. Now let's take a look at the result. This is great. Looks like many of you have joined our webinars before. For those joining us again, welcome back. For first-timers, we'd like to welcome you, and we hope you enjoy this webinar and join us in the future.
Throughout the webinar, please feel free to share any key lessons you have learned or taken away from our past webinars. For those who have any questions, please ensure you type them in the chat box, and we'll be sure to get to them during the question and answer period.
All right, let's jump into our first tip for 2016, accessing services. One of the things we kept hearing from our partners was that job seekers who take advantage of employment services often reach their career goals faster. Employment centers can provide information and assistance with self-assessment, career planning, language training, and personal branding.
Employment centers can also connect you with volunteer positions, internships, bridging programs, and even to mentoring opportunities and additional advice.
There are many services and programs that are available to immigrants. In Canada, you can connect with these services before and after arriving, while in the U.S., the services are for those already here. Accessing these services increases your chances of integrating and finding a job quicker, as these organizations can help access your level in various areas, provide additional support, and connect you to other service providers, as well as help you create a plan to reach your goal. While these services are accessible, they might require some research on your part to find them. A good place to start is by visiting your local library or Department of Labor.
If any of you would like to share some of the services you have accessed as part of your job search, feel free to let us know in the chat box.
While you type your answers in the chat box, here are some of the services our experts shared with us last year. First is Upwardly Global. A close national partner of WES in the U.S., this organization offers skilled immigrants training and support on continuing their profession in the U.S., and you can find more information and a list of their services at upwardlyglobal.org. Another great free service we heard about last year is Career One Stop. This website allows for self-assessment, exploration of careers, and finding trainings and jobs. To learn more, go to careeronestop.org.
In Canada, the most useful link for our audience would be the Government of Canada's MAP service, as this allows you to see which services are available near you. There are also several pre-arrival services available to immigrants considering Canada, available both on the ground in countries like India, China, and the Philippines, as well as Europe. There are also online services that you can access from anywhere. Let's take a look to see what services our audience members have accessed as part of their job search. We've got some good responses. I see YMCA Newcomer Center, Center for Education and Training, and a few local college career service centers.
Oh, would you look at that, Sean and Marie? A few of our audience members have access Upwardly Global and some pre-arrival services. You guys must have been the bunch that attended our webinars.
This gets us into tip number 2. Tip number 2 from the experts is to think about your strengths and weaknesses and conduct an honest self-assessment. Knowing your strengths and weaknesses can provide insight into what your next step should be to achieve your goals. In one of our webinars, we discussed conducting a SWOT analysis on yourself and your career. SWOT stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats.
Like Sean and Marie said, understanding your unique talents and how they can be transferred is a crucial factor in developing a better plan, and a SWOT analysis can help you do this. Think about what you are good at, what skills you should spend some time developing, where the greatest opportunities are in terms of demand for your occupation or expertise, and understanding the constraints to reaching your goals. By answering the questions up on the slide right now, you will have already started your self-assessment. Just as a reminder, don't feel rushed to complete your self-assessment now. We'll send you the slides and recording after the webinar.
Okay, we're going to have another quick poll about our third tip from the experts, employers' needs. The polling question is on your right-hand side. Please input your answer and click Submit.
So the question is how you can you, as a job seeker, show that you understand what employers' needs are? Is it A, a tailored resume, B, a tailored cover letter, C, researching the employer, D, all of the above, or E, none of the above?
In the webinar where this question originally came from, we heard directly from hiring managers about what they were looking for when making decisions on candidates who apply to their companies.
All right, let's take a look at the results. We got a lot of response, and the correct answer is D, all of the above. The majority of the audience missed it, but that's okay.
Let's discuss this some more.
Even though most of the audience knew the answer, as a review, we should look at what employers look for. Our third tip from the experts is to make sure you understand the employer's needs and required qualifications as written on the job description before you apply to the position.
It's a theme we keep going back to. You really have to do your research.
Absolutely. Research is a key component of understanding the employer and how you fit in. Just like you, employers and recruiters are busy people. You want to make it as easy as possible for them to see that you are the best person for the job. Make sure when submitting a resume and a cover letter that you understand all the key components of the position. Give clear and simple reasons why you are the best candidate for the role.
You are so right, Sanai. Hiring managers don't always have time to pick up the phone or email you to ask clarifying questions. A big mistake people make is to apply for everything and anything that they see, when often if they read the posting, it might be clear they're not the right fit for the role. If a hiring manager is confused about why you applied to a position, it's a good bet that you won't be getting a call for the interview.
So true. If, on the other hand, you can show how your skills and knowledge fit a role and craft your resume and cover letter for the right position, you might just get an interview, or better yet, get the job. A well-crafted resume lists your education and employment history as it relates to the job you're applying for, whereas your cover letter is where you could share your passion and achievements and explain how you are the best candidate for the position. Our experts share that your understanding of employers' needs cannot stop at the application stage. You need to be as prepared for the interview stage. This means knowing the company and the role inside out. Here again, emphasizing research. In preparing for your interview, be sure you're able to provide specific examples of work you've done that relates to the job description and duties.
Another one of the biggest tips we heard this year was to get out there and volunteer. Volunteering means donating your time and talents to organizations who don't have the funds to pay for your services. It can be easy to overlook volunteering when you are focused on getting a job, but the benefits you get as a volunteer can really be considered their own form of reward.
Absolutely. Volunteering is a great way to make connections to the people and places where you live and can provide a sense of belonging in a new community. Through volunteer work, you can become familiar with the social and cultural norms of a new environment and often have access to free training and development opportunities. Volunteering also lets you interact with a lot of different people who can end up being important pieces of your professional network.
You know, in most cases, the process to become a volunteer is very similar to the application and hiring process for employment. You have to submit a resume and take part in interviews before becoming a volunteer, and can often have many responsibilities. Because of this, a lot of volunteer supervisors will write reference letters to potential employers on your behalf. As Sanai mentioned, volunteering is an excellent opportunity to network and make contacts that can be valuable in your career.
There's also such a wide variety of activities that count as volunteering. There are options for everyone to explore. Across Canada and the U.S., volunteers offer a vital service to thousands of organizations, whether it is in a hospital, community garden, IT training program, religious community, or youth sports program. There are roles and organizations waiting for your help today. For more on volunteering, you can check out articles on WES Advisor.
Volunteering can also be a great way to explore new experiences, which leads into our fifth top tip from the experts. Be flexible and think about related and alternative careers when seeking career success. Time for another poll question before we move into this tip. We'd like to know, how long do you think it will take to find a job in Canada or the United States? Is it A, less than 6 months, B, between 6 months and 1 year, C, between 1 and 2 years, or D, more than 2 years? Okay, so we've got a lot of variation, but it looks like most of you have said A, less than 6 months.
Realistically, there is no right answer. For every person and every industry, it all varies. Finding a job takes a lot of work, time, and patience. This leads us to our next tip. For many foreign-trained professionals, one of the main priority is finding work in their field. We know, though, this can be challenging. Newcomers who have qualifications in a regulated profession find it difficult to find work in their profession. Examples of regulated professions include engineering, doctors, and lawyers.
Even though it can be difficult to find employment in regulated professions, we know from our experts that it is still possible to find career success in a new country by exploring related and alternative careers. Related careers are careers within your field which do not require you to relicense in your original profession. Related careers are ideal for foreign-trained professionals who want to continue working in their field but do not want to undergo relicensing or who want to work while they relicense.
Just as an example, if you are an engineer before coming to Canada or the U.S., you can explore related careers as a land surveyor, construction manager, or product safety specialist. By choosing to pursue careers related to your original occupation, you can increase your professional network and make connections in your field, while gaining Canadian or U.S. professional work experience.
You may also choose to explore an alternative career. Alternative careers are careers outside of your original profession, but which still use the skills and knowledge you gained during your education and professional training. For example, if you were an engineer before coming to Canada or the United States, you could explore an alternative career as a general operations manager, an interior designer, or a geospatial information technologist.
Exactly. By choosing to explore an alternative career, you can work in a profession that supports your skills, interests, and talents. It can also be an opportunity to explore new career options that might not have been around when you first started your career. Explore occupations that have higher salaries or a better work-life balance.
We've heard from so many of you that it can be hard to think of a new and different career, even if you're having trouble finding work in your chosen field. But there are many benefits we think you might consider. Finding work in a related or alternative job can help lower your financial stress by providing income, grow your professional network, help you gain work experience, and make your timeline for finding work in your preferred field or specific occupation more flexible.
Flexibility is key, especially as you try to establish yourself in a new country. The demand for certain skills change as the labor market changes. The best way to keep up with these changes is to think about your education and work experience as the starting point of possibilities. Here is where self-assessment and the SWOT analysis will be helpful. If you would like to learn about how other skilled immigrants found career success through related and alternative careers, read our articles on WES Advisor.
This leads right into our next tip from the experts, which is to look at labor market information. We hear so often about using labor market information to help make decisions, but what exactly is labor market information?
That's a great question. It can definitely be confusing. And if I remember correctly from our webinar last year, labor market information really just covers the main elements of the labor market and its operations. Things like supply and demand. Demand in the context of labor market information means the number of jobs available, and supply tells us the number of people who are available to fill those positions. So where can people find labor market information?
I'm glad you asked. You can find labor market information on government websites, in industry publications like magazines and newsletters, and even on the news. Many companies also publish information about the labor market and job prospects directly on their websites.
As we just mentioned, labor markets are continually changing. This means that the jobs in demand and where they are located are always changing too.
It is also important to look at the licensing or relicensing process for the occupation you wish to practice. In the U.S. and Canada, specific authorities or regulatory bodies are responsible for recognizing professional credentials required for state or provincial licensing. Since the time and cost associated with licensing varies, always remember to research your options before making a decision. You can find the licensing or regulatory bodies for your specific field by looking at CICIC.ca in Canada and clearhq.org in the U.S.
Both great websites. Before we jump to our next tip, here is our last poll question for the webinar. What does communication involve? And we've opened the webinar, the polling, so please respond. Is it A, speaking, writing, and reading, B, tone, comprehension, and body language, C, all of the above, or D, none of the above?
As Sinai mentioned, we've already opened the polls. If the polling question didn't pop up, just as a reminder, it's located on the right-hand side of your screen. Select your answer and click Submit. What do you think the answer is, Sinai?
This is a really tricky one, isn't it?
Okay, you know what? It looks like the audience got it right. Most of the audience chose C, all of the above. Communications is a complicated matter and involves many things, as all of you guessed. Let's move on to our next tip to discuss this further.
So our next tip, our seventh one, that we heard from our experts in 2016 was communication skills. This is an essential skill to help you find career success. Being an effective communicator is an example of a soft skill that enables you to fit in at any workplace.
Communication skills are made up of a few key pieces. Clearly, a good understanding of the English language is essential to work as a professional in Canada or the United States. But successful communication needs more than words.
Absolutely. It can be tempting to depend on a high language test score to show employers that you have good communication skills. And language test scores are important measures of your language comprehension. But the truth is that tests like IELTS or TOEFL don't measure how you communicate with others. These tests do not show your abilities in important things like body language, the speed and volume at which you speak, and the way you might change the tone or wording of a particular message to suit your audience, which are all important soft skills.
Soft skills are key. Employers are looking for candidates who can demonstrate communication competence, not just knowledge of the English language. Communication competencies include things like being aware of specific workplace cultures, for example, knowing which personal information is appropriate to share in a work setting, as well as other skills like active listening and conversation skills. Competencies focus on what a person can do, not just what they know, and not just which types of jobs they have had in the past.
This is why interviews in Canada and the U.S. tend to be behavioral, with employers asking general questions to get a better sense of who you are as a person and how well you fit to the culture of the organization or company. Employers want to know how you behave in certain work situations, what decisions you might make, how you communicate these decisions, and how you would work with a team to complete projects. Communication skills are at the top of every must-have for most employers.
It's funny that you mention that, Sinai, because communication skills are an important aspect of our next tip, networking. It has been said that nearly 85% of all jobs are found through networks. Having a strong professional network is important to help foreign-trained professionals, as well as professionals educated in Canada or the United States, find career success. So what is networking? Simply put, networking is building meaningful, lasting, mutually beneficial relationships, one person at a time.
Absolutely. Networking does not have to be a scary activity. Remember, networking is really about relationship building. You should think of networking the same way you think of making a new friend. Not every person you meet will be able to provide you with job leads or help you advance your professional career, and that's okay. Sometimes you can gain great insight just talking to someone new, without the pressure of having to ask whether they know of a job opening for you. But having a network will help you learn about job openings as well as give you an insight on how employers look at candidates.
You can network in person almost anywhere, at a grocery store, at your place of worship, a library, on the bus, or on the train. You can also use LinkedIn or join a professional network. Networking can be as simple as chatting with someone who happens to be in the same place as you and trying to find common experiences, skills, or interests between you. As Sinai said, not every person you meet will be able to provide you with job leads, but many times these informal connections can lead to other introductions or helpful advice. Just like successful friendships, networking requires follow-up and continual engagement. It's not just a matter of meeting someone, but keeping in touch with them too.
So true. Another essential tip we shared in 2016 was based on a research we completed. The research found that immigrants who had additional U.S. or Canadian education were more likely to be employed and find greater levels of career success than those who had only received education from abroad.
The key word here is additional. This finding does not discount your education from abroad, and it is important to know that all of your education and experience is valuable. Having additional qualifications from Canada or the United States can only enhance your achievements. This additional training can allow you to gain U.S. or Canadian experience, expand your network, and may give you the opportunity to explore some of those alternative and related careers we mentioned earlier.
If you're looking to continue your education or gain additional education, consider connecting with your local community college or other accredited professional training institutions in the U.S. and Canada. Our ninth tip is to consider how your foreign education can fit in the context of Canada or the United States. As many of you might know, World Education Services provides credential evaluation and on an annual basis completes about 200,000 evaluations in Canada and the U.S. Because educational systems vary from country to country, degrees and diplomas may have different value in the U.S. or Canada. Comparing the training you received in your country to a similar degree in the United States or Canada is the process of foreign credential evaluation, sometimes called degree equivalency. A credential evaluation can help you get recognition for your previous studies, meet requirements for university admissions, acquire transferable credits, or obtain professional licensing and employment. Obtaining a credential evaluation to assess your education and training is the first step in gaining access to educational and employment opportunities in the U.S. and Canada.
Before requesting a credential evaluation from any agency, it's important to contact the admissions office, regulatory body, or employer who requires the evaluation. These institutions are responsible for the final recognition and may require that your evaluation comes from a specific credential evaluator.
Can you believe it, Shauna Marie? We're near the end of our webinar. Who knew you can review a year so quickly? Our last expert tip to consider is that the entire job search and employment process is a two-way street. While you are looking for jobs and making your plans for career success, remember that the skills and knowledge you have are needed by employers. As much as employers will evaluate if you are the right fit for their company, you need to think about whether each company or job posting you see is the right fit for you.
Exactly right, Sanai. Every employer has a different culture, and it's important to understand how you can fit in and how they can fit with you. For example, some workplaces are very hierarchical, and interactions between colleagues are largely based on their positions in the company. In other workplaces, things are more flexible and focused on collaboration.
And this is part of the research, isn't it? Learning about the employer and finding out if it's the right fit for you and if you're the right fit for the position. But as we wrap up, please know starting in a new country is challenging, but not impossible. There are many helpful resources. Some we've shared on this webinar, and others we've shared in our newsletters and blogs. And we will continue to share more information in 2017.
Okay, we've covered a lot. Before we get to our questions, let's recap the 10 essential tips for career success that our experts have shared in 2016. Number 1, access services. Number 2, conduct an honest self-assessment. Number 3, understand employers' needs. Number 4, get out there and volunteer. Number 5, be flexible and consider related and alternative careers. Number 6, research and understand the labor market. Number 7, work on those communication skills. Number 8, get out there and network. Number 9, get your credentials evaluated to achieve recognition. And get additional credentials from Canadian or American institutions. Last but not least, employment and job searching is just as much about your needs as it is the employer's.
Wow, that is a lot that we've covered. Well, just looking at the time, I think we should wrap up. I just want to say thank you so much for sharing your questions with us today. It always makes our webinars more interactive when we hear from all of you.
And I think this webinar has been very interactive. It's been great seeing all of your questions and that the chat has been so active today.
Absolutely.
So as we conclude, we would like to thank our colleagues, Sarah Hua, Gelik Badadsang, Ben Fortney, and again, Anthony Castro for their assistance and support with today's webinar.
Thank you all. If you are interested in receiving invitation for future webinars, newsletters, and networking events, feel free to send us an email at gtbcanada@wes.org or nyc@wes.org.
Sanai, it was great speaking with you today, and I look forward to our next conversation.
It's always a pleasure. And a final reminder, all of the webinar materials, including the PowerPoint presentation, video recording, and questions and answer summary will be sent to you a few days following the webinar.
Finally, we'd really like to extend our thanks to all of you for participating today. As you leave the webinar, a survey will pop up in another window. Please remember to complete that survey. Your feedback will help us improve our webinars. Thank you again, and we hope you'll join us next time.
Thank you.